Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, we're back to work on the greenhouse. We got a lot accomplished earlier today, but we're still got some nice weather. We're gonna try to get even more done right now.
Now, this is our second greenhouse build. 2 years ago, we built a greenhouse exactly like this, and we used that greenhouse to start a lot of our seeds and spring and summer plants in, not only for our garden, but also for our local farmers market. But we want to be able to grow a lot of our own food, even through the winter time, so we decided to put up a second greenhouse that will be dedicated just to growing food over the cooler parts of the year.
Now, when we built our first one, we had some help from some of our friends, but this time it's just the two of us trying to tackle this project all by ourselves. And so far, it's going awesome. We weren't sure if we'd be able to do one of these kits, just the two of us, but it's ending up being a much easier process than we had anticipated.
We hope that that gives you guys a little motivation and hope that maybe you and your spouse or you and another friend could do this greenhouse build together.
So the last two things that we need to do on this greenhouse before we can start actually planting some seeds inside of it are to put the wind straps on, which help hold the plastic even tighter to the frame, and to install the roll-up side so we have proper ventilation on the days where it's getting too warm. We're hoping to get both of those done, so let's get started. So this is the wind strap material. This is like a heavy-duty nylon type material, and basically what this will do is attach to the hip boards on both sides of the greenhouse. It'll go in between the bows, so we'll basically attach it here, throw it over, and it'll go in between two of the bows. And this really helps hold the plastic nice and tight, and it also gives extra protection in case a big wind comes that it just can't rip it right off. We have this on our other greenhouse as well, and we've had some pretty nasty storms here in the Ozarks, and the plastic is now going on its third season and is still in perfect condition. So we really think this plays a big role in that. I wouldn't neglect putting this on if you were to build one of these greenhouses. So we're going to get started. We're going to just attach something to the end so we can throw it over, and then we'll just do this in between every two bows. Alright, so what I've done is I've tied a water bottle with a piece of string to the end of the wind strap. I'm going to just throw this over, and Sarah will grab it on the other side.
Got it.
And now she'll untie that, and she'll hold it to the hip board on that side, so I know where to cut it on this side. So I'll measure here, and we'll cut. And the easiest way to cut these is with a torch. That way it cuts it and seals the ends right away. Now be careful though, because don't use your torch near your new greenhouse that you just put up and melt a hole in the plastic. So hold it far enough away that you're not going to do that. Not that I would ever make a mistake like that. Alright, so now we'll do our best to make sure there's no twists in it, and we'll be ready to install it. I don't see any twists on my side, do you? Alright, so now that we've got the wind strap thrown over, I've already put a screw over on the other side. Again, it attaches right to this hip board. All we're using is a wood screw with a washer on it. And again, you want to try to get it as centered between these two bows as you can. Don't go, I mean, you don't have to measure and make sure it's perfectly centered, but, you know, get it as centered as you can. And then you want to pull it fairly tight. It'll actually pull down a little bit on the plastic. And then you'll put your screw and your washer right through the wind strap. Just like that. And that gives an extra way that the plastic is held tight. Now as we go down, you'll see that this really tightens up the plastic nicely. Alright, so we'll do the same thing as before. Tie a piece of string to it with the water bottle in between these next two bows, and we'll just throw it over.
Got it.
Alright.
Whatever.
Alright, ready? Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
Yeah. Got it.
All right. All right, ready?
Yeah. Got it.
All right. Well, we got all the wind straps on. They look great. They're really holding that top plastic now nice and tight. I have no concerns about that blowing off. That is on there so nicely. We still have the roll-up sides to do, but it's starting to get late in the day, so we're going to go in and have dinner. We'll see you guys back out here in the morning. Well, it's the next day. Apparently the turkeys are excited that we're back out working today. So it's the next day. It's shortly after lunchtime. We're going to try to get back to work on the greenhouse. Thank goodness that we got that top put on yesterday, because even though it's still pretty warm out today, it is windy, and there's no way we would have been able to put that top on today.
So we have one project left to finish today, and that will conclude the greenhouse project.
Right. As far as putting it up, there's
Yeah.
still a lot of work to do inside with plants.
Yeah, but I'm so happy to have this up there. It is actually a little bit warmer in there already, even though it's cloudy outside. I know I talked about it a lot yesterday, but I just cannot wait to get started planting in this greenhouse and growing some more food for our family.
So today we need to install the roll-up sides so that not only is this plastic not blowing around in the wind like it is right now, but so that when the weather warms up, we can roll those sides up and get some really good ventilation in the greenhouse. So we're going to start on that now, and we have both sides to do yet today. So to get started on the roll-up sides, the first thing we're going to need to do is to cut some of the plastic. The plastic that we put over the top of the greenhouse is also the plastic for the roll-up side. So this is all one continuous piece. Now we're not going to cut that off. We want that to stay attached. But you'll see that when you put it on, this piece of plastic is too long down at the ground. So the first thing we need to do is we need to cut here, and then we need to cut the length of the greenhouse so that there's just a little bit hanging on the ground, maybe 2 or 3 inches on the ground, and that's it. And then we'll be able to start attaching the pole along the bottom. Alright, so now that we have that cut, the next thing to do is to actually take these poles and lay them out along the ground. And we want these to be about 1 foot longer than the greenhouse on each end. So we may have to cut. We'll see how it works out when we start laying the poles out. Now these poles have a tapered end, so they just slide together, and then once we know that we have the right length, then we'll put a screw in to hold them together. Alright, now that we have this all laid out, you can see that this pole is way too long, so we'll just measure 1 foot and we'll make a mark there, and then we'll just cut that with our Sawzall. Then we'll be ready to attach it to the plastic. Alright, so now that we've got our pipe cut to the right length, we can go ahead and fasten it together. We're just going to take one of these self-tapping screws and put it where each of the sections of pipe meet. Now that we have the sections of pipe put together, the next thing we're going to do is install a handle on each end of the pipe. This will be what we actually use to roll up the sides. So we'll just slide that in, and then we'll attach that with the same type of screw that we did what we put the pipes together with. And we'll put one at the other end as well.
So the next step is to attach the long pole to the plastic. We're going to do that with these clamps that they provide with the kit. But the first thing we need to do in order to have it the right height is we need to lift this long pole and set it on top of this baseboard here. Then we will go ahead and attach these clamps around the plastic on top of the pole. The wind is really crazy today. It's making things a little bit more difficult for us.
Alright, so the last step in these roll-up sides is attaching some more of this wind strap. The same material we used yesterday over the top of the greenhouse. What we'll do now is we'll actually attach a piece of this everywhere that there's a pole. So we'll put a piece here, and this will run from the hip board to the baseboard, and you'll pull this tight so that it actually holds this bar up onto the bottom of the baseboard, and it makes it so that when you roll it up, it's got like a track to ride in. So we're going to put these on, and then we'll demonstrate how the roll-up sides actually work. Perfect, and now that holds this onto this board. So we'll do this again at every pole all the way down the side of the greenhouse. Alright, so now that we have those straps on, we can test out the roll-up side for the first time. That's perfect. Look how much extra ventilation that gives to the greenhouse. That's really nice. I know on our other greenhouse, when we put those sides up, it almost immediately cools down the greenhouse.
I can actually feel the heat coming out of the greenhouse. Okay, let's put it back down.
Now, one thing that I wanted to mention to you guys with these roll-up sides is that when they're in their down position like this, it leaves a pretty big gap here at the side of the greenhouse, which isn't a big deal in the summer, but in the winter when you're trying to keep some warm air in, that can be a big deal. But there's an easy fix to it. All you have to do is in the winter, when you're not going to be putting the sides up and down anyway, you just pull this over and you put a piece of that wiggle wire right here in this track, and that locks that into place for the winter. Well, we have the roll-up sides done on both sides of the greenhouse now. I thought I'd show you what they look like here from the inside. You can see now that that metal bar is attached at the bottom. It holds that side piece of plastic nice and tight, and this is going to be awesome. During this time of year when the weather is still fairly cold, we'll probably put some wiggle wire in to help, take the leaks out of here, the drafts out. But in the summer or the warm days like today, it's easy to take that out, roll those sides up, and get some beautiful ventilation. We got those roll-up sides done just in time yesterday because overnight it took a big turn and it got a lot colder out. So we're so glad that the greenhouse is now officially 100% done.
Woohoo!
I don't know if you can tell. You can actually see my breath out here in the greenhouse today. But we felt so blessed to have those few nice days to be able to get this project done. Now that the greenhouse itself is done, there's one more project that we need to do before we can get started planting.
We have this big raised bed garden here. It is 6 feet wide by 22 feet long, and this is where we're going to be growing a ton of food over the winter and the spring and the fall. But there's one thing that we want to do here to help protect it from the cold. Now, if you remember back to when we were building the raised bed, we installed some pipes on the outside to stabilize the raised bed garden, but it also is going to serve a second purpose.
So here are the pipes that Sarah was talking about. These are galvanized pipes. They're actually the same pipes that we used for the roll-up sides. These are driven into the ground about 3 feet, so they're really nice and sturdy. And then we've attached them to the side of the raised bed with these metal straps. So this not only gives a lot of stability to the sides of the raised bed, but it's also going to allow us to be able to build hoops over the raised bed so we can install a floating row cover. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what a floating row cover is, it's a piece of fabric that will go over the raised bed. It not only helps give extra frost protection from the plants, but it'll keep pests off the plants as well. It's the same system that we used out in the garden last year on all of our broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower that worked so well. So we're going to use it in here. Initially, this time of year, there's not a lot of pests. So initially, it'll be used mostly to help hold in extra heat. During the day, the soil will warm up nicely, and with the row covers over, it'll keep some of that heat in overnight as well. So it should help things grow even faster in the greenhouse. So to build the hoops, we're going to use 1/2 inch PVC pipe. I've already marked a 6-inch line on each one of those at the ends. So we're going to get busy just sliding these into the pole, and then we'll put one screw through to hold them into place.
Well, I think that looks fantastic. I think it's going to serve us really well.
So now I'm going to go through and just put one screw in each of these just so they can't slip down further when we pull the fabric tight across the top. We'll just put one screw there just to hold them so they can't slide down, because you do want all of your hoops to be the same height, which is why I marked that 6-inch mark, so we know that these are 6 inches down inside of that pipe. Now in here we have these spaced out evenly across the raised bed. We have 5 hoops, and because in here we're not going to have the wind issues that we have out in the garden when we use the floating row covers, I think this should be a good spacing in here. If there was a lot of wind, you might want more hoops, but in here I think this is going to be great. Now that we have those bows all attached, it's time to put the actual fabric on for the floating row cover. We're going to roll this out the best that we can, and then we're going to cut it to the right length. Now, this floating row cover is another thing that we get from growersolution.com. You guys, like I said in the past, the nice thing about them is that they sell products that are like professional grade products, but in quantities that the average person can use, which is what makes them really nice. All right, so we're going to roll this out. It's starting to really rain hard outside, so I hope you guys can hear okay. We're going to do the best we can. At least it's not raining in here.
Okay, like down here.
Now that we have the fabric spread out over the hoops, we're going to attach this side of the fabric to the hoops. We're going to do that with something very high tech, some binder clips that we picked up at Walmart. They just happen to fit nice and snugly on this 1/2-inch PVC pipe. So I'm going to put 3 of them here, and that will allow us to be able to go down to that end and pull it fairly tight down on that end. So first I'll pull the center here, and this doesn't have to be super tight. Again, we're not dealing with wind in the greenhouse like we would be outside, so and I'll re-pull from this side again just to get it as snug as we can. And I think that's looking great. That's going to give a nice added layer of protection to the plant. So we'll have the greenhouse for protection and then the row cover as well.
So on the ends, all we've done is gathered together each end and the center and rolled it all up and tied it with a rope here to keep everything together and tight on the ends. Let us show you how we're going to be able to open this to get at the plants once they're planted. All right, guys, let us reveal to you how this is all going to work, and it's so exciting and so fantastic.
It'll be even better when we open it up and there's a lot of green inside of it.
Absolutely. All right, you ready?
Yep.
That's how we'll get in there. That is so exciting. This fabric, this row cover is going to help create another layer of warmth in here. Now, we're going to be raising mostly cold weather crops, so cauliflower, lettuce, cabbage, those kinds of things. We're not going to be raising peppers and tomatoes. So the fact that this is not a heated greenhouse is fine. All of the cold weather crops will do just great in here. This is just going to be another added layer of protection for them, and I think they're really going to thrive in here.
Well, that was the final piece of the puzzle. The greenhouse is done, the raised bed is done, the row cover's on. The next thing to do is to actually start planting in here. We're so excited.
We have plant starts ready to go from the house to go into the garden. We also have some seeds that I think pretty soon we'll be able to plant and will actually start germinating because of the warmth in here.
Yeah, I was actually surprised as I was researching some of these cold weather crops that a lot of them will germinate with the ground temperature at 40 degrees, which is pretty amazing.
So we're one step closer to growing more and more of our food. We're so excited that this project has wrapped up, and now we can actually start growing more food over the winter, the spring, and the fall.
So if you guys are enjoying our videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button before you leave. Join us as we continue to grow in here and we can really show what it's going to be like to plant these cold weather crops in an unheated greenhouse.
The best way for you to help us is to share our videos on your social media and talk with other people who are like-minded and who would enjoy what we're doing here. And until next time, thanks so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.